All right, so we have now looked at amplitude and vertical shifts, moving it up or down. So now we're going to do our third one here, which is a reflection. So if the a that's in front of your sine or cosine is negative, it's less than 0, then we're going to reflect it over the horizontal or the x-axis. So let's go ahead and let's graph out y equals negative sine x. So kind of thinking through all of our parts, is there something being multiplied? Oh yeah, there's a -1 being multiplied. So if you remember, you take the absolute value of that, which is 1, and that gives us our amplitude. Is there a vertical shift? No, there's nothing being added or subtracted there, either to the left in front of it or to the right of that, so none. And is there a reflection? Yes, your a here is negative, so yes, there's a reflection going on. So we could do the same thing with this cosine one here over here. Amplitude there, you're going to do the absolute value of -1, which gives us 1. Is there a vertical shift? No, there's nothing being added or subtracted to this, so none. And then there is a reflection? Yes, it's right there. It's -1 times cosine of x, and your a value there is negative. So let's graph this one out now. So since we're dealing with cosine there, and if we want to do our little table, we can do that. So our value is 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2. And remember, I'm just taking the axes values of my radians, and then I'm going to do the sine values, which is the y values of my ordered pairs around the circle there on the axes. So this is 0, pi over 2 there at 1, pi we're at 0, 3 pi over 2 we're at -1, and there at 2 pi we're at 0. So let's go ahead and let's graph out just a regular sine graph here first. Well, we'll do this. Pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. So graphing this one out, we get 0, 0. At pi over 2, I'm up here at 1. At pi, I'm there at 0. At 3 pi over 2, I'm down here at -1. And at 2 pi, there I'm at 0. This is just my y equals sine of x, but we want y equals negative sine x. So what happens here is this top portion up here, that's above here, this portion up here, it's going to be reflected down. So if you kind of think about that, this, instead of being 1 up here, you're going to multiply that by -1, which then reflects down here. This portion down here is going to be reflected up above the x-axis there, so it comes up here. So really, your final graph is really that, with that blue one. All right, another way of kind of thinking through that, see if we got some more room, we could actually graph it out again. So you got 1, -1. Some of you will probably like doing it this way. You're going to kind of think through it as you go. So at 0, 0, it just stays there. It doesn't reflect at all. At pi over 2, normally it's supposed to be up there at 1, but you have to kind of think about multiplying these by -1. So if you multiply these by -1, you get 0, you get -1, you get 0, you get 1, and you get 0. So this is still 0, 0. At pi over 2 there, we're at -1. At pi there, we're at 0. At 3 pi over 2 there, we're at 1. And at 2 pi there, we're at 0. So following those from the table of values we just got, you get exactly the same graph. So now we can come over here and look at the cosine graph. So our cosine graph, I'm going to do another table over here. So remember, we're going to look up on our axes there. What we're going to take 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. The x values there are going to be 1, 0, -1, 0, 1. So I'm going to also put my values on my graph here. I'll be looking for those when I look at your worksheets on Monday that you actually did this. And then at 0 there, or up there at 1, that would be the regular cosine graph. So if you're a person who wants to graph out the regular one first and then transform it, go ahead. Or you could do your math right away. we can see that there's only a reflection here going on. The only thing you're doing is you're multiplying -1 times your cosine of x. So I could simply go ahead and multiply these by -1 and get my final answer. So I get -1, 0, 1, 0, -1. So I could simply plot out 0, -1, pi over 2, 0, pi, 1, 3 pi over 2, 0, and 2 pi, -1. Or I could graph them each at different intervals here. So I could go 0, 1 is my regular cosine graph, pi over 2 is 0, pi here I'm at -1, 3 pi over 2 I'm at 0, and 2 pi I'm at 1. This is my regular cosine graph with no negative. And then if I want, I could reflect this. So if I reflect this over the x-axis, this one comes down. This one stays there on the axis there. This one down here is going to reflect up. At 3 pi over 2, it's going to stay there because it's on the horizontal axis. And then at 2 pi as at 1, it's going to reflect down to -1. So this green graph here becomes my final graph. Or you could have just simply looked at your ordered pairs over here and plotted them down. So I could have done 0, -1, pi over 2, 0, pi is at 1, 3 pi over 2 is at 0, and 2 pi there I'm at -1, and then I simply connected those. So there's my reflection. So now let's kind of put it all together and let's graph out some of these. So looking here at amplitude, oh yeah, there's a -2 times cosine x, that's my amplitude. So I have to do the opposite value of that, which is 2. Is there a vertical shift? Yes, there's a 3 being added in here. So that would mean it's going to move it up 3. Is there a reflection? Yes, it's a -2 times, so there's a reflection going on. So again, I'm going to do my table here. It's cosine. So I'm going to use my nice points there. I know I just put down t and it has an x, so I'm going to put down an x like they have an x. Sometimes I think that messes people up, but that's okay. We'll use x. So at 0 there, at angle there at 0, we're looking at the x value on your unit circle. That corresponds with 0 radians, and that would be 1. And then we got 0. Then we got -1. At 3 pi, we got 0. And then all the way back around, we're at 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put a bunch of numbers in here. Alright, so this is at pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Alright, so if you want, you could graph that out first. You could multiply it by -2 and then add 3. So if you were to do your math out here, you'd do your multiplication there first, and then you'd add 3. So multiply and then add. And you can tell because this is kind of the closest there. You want to do your multiplication first and then add. So multiply by -2, add 3. Multiply by -2, add 3. Multiply by -2, and add 3. If you want to do all the math out. So all impacting the y values. So your new ordered pair there, then if you did your math on this, was that -2 plus 3 there is 1. This is 3. This is 5, 3, 1. So you could simply plot those out if you wanted to. You could also kind of think through this. If we're sitting here at 1, which our normal graph would be, it'd be at 0, 1. And then I'd have to multiply that by -2. If I multiply that by -2, I'm down here at -2. And then I got to simply move it up 3. So 1, 2, 3. And I'm right back there. So then your next one here is at 0. Pi over 2, 0. And then I could think about multiplying that by -2. It stays there, and then move it up 3. 1, 2, 3. So it's still the same thing as you got here. Pi over 2, 3. And then here at pi, normally I'm supposed to be down here at -1. So I have to multiply that by -2. So if I multiply that by -2, I'm up here at 2. And then I got to move it up 3. 1, 2, 3. So it looks like I got to move this up one more, up to 5. And then at 3 pi over 2, normally I'm here at 0, so I have to multiply that by -2, so I'm staying there, and I'm going to move it up 3. 1, 2, 3. And then at 2 pi, normally I'm up there at 1. I got to multiply that by -2, so I'm down here at -2. And then I got to move it up 3. 1, 2, 3. So now I can simply connect those, and there's my graph. So again, we could have just plotted our regular cosine graph and then moved it accordingly. Or we could have done our math all at once. It's up to you. But notice amplitude is 2, vertical shift there is up 3, reflection there, yes, there is 1. All right, one final one here. Amplitude here, there's a 3 being multiplied there, so absolute value of 3 is 3. Vertical shift, yes, it's that -1 plus, so I'm going to move it down 1. There's not a -3 sine x, so there's no reflection going on this time. So let's do our nice table here. So using our same nice values that we've been using all the way along. So at sine, there's our y values. So our y value there is 0, 1, 0, -1, 0. And so here you could think about, if you want to do your math out on this, you could multiply by 3 and then subtract 1. Multiply by 3, subtract 1, multiply by 3, subtract 1, multiply by 3, subtract 1, multiply by 3, subtract 1. So what does that give us? -1, 2, -1, -4, and -1. So let's graph it. Pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. So again, up to you how you want to do this. 0, 0 is where it's normally, and then you could think about it multiplying that by 3, and you're still at 0, 0, and then moving it down 1. Or you could just do your math all at once and just plot it, 0, -1. At pi over 2, normally you're supposed to be up here at 1. Multiplying that by 3, so we're up here at 3. And then we're supposed to subtract 1, so we're there at negative, or there at 2. And then at pi there, normally we're supposed to be there at 0. Multiply that by 3, it stays there, and then move it down 1. And then at 3 pi over 2, normally you're supposed to be there at -1. Multiply that by 3 there, so we're at -3. That's way down here. And then we're supposed to still bring it down 1, so we're really down here at -4. And then at 2 pi, normally you're supposed to be here at 0. Multiply that by 3, I'm still there at 0, and subtract 1 or bring it down 1, and we're there. So now I can just simply connect my points there. So there it is. So there we have amplitude of 3, vertical shift down 1, reflection no. All right. So I can graph sine and cosine equations using transformation involving amplitude, reflections, and vertical shifts. So we're only dealing with affecting the y value today. Tomorrow we'll deal with the x values. So your homework is to do the 2-4 worksheet number 1.